Hello and welcome to the magic of fishing. Today you join me in pursuit of barbel and I'm back on the banks of the beautiful River Wey in Surrey. It's a lovely September evening. We've had all four seasons in one day. I was stuck at my desk working away this afternoon and we had more torrential rain, which really did feel like a rare sight after the hot, dry summer that we've all experienced in the UK. It's made the river fishing particularly tricky, especially for big fish like barbel. But this week it's really felt like that tipping point between summer and autumn. I'm a glass half full kind of bloke and I like to think summer's still in full swing during at least the first half of September, but even I've had to admit that this week it's felt very autumnal. We've had a lot of rain, steady drizzle for 2 or 3 days, and although there's some beautiful blooms still in evidence, certainly around the river near where I've been living for the last few months since moving to Guildford, there's also been signs of autumn. Plenty of conkers on the trees, berries, and a few leaves just starting to yellow. But that means great conditions for catching fish. It's still nice and mild, certainly when the sun's out. It's quite hot in fact, and it's only a week ago I was roach fishing on the River Thames, August bank holiday, and it was red hot, approaching 30 degrees. So all this rain we've had, the slight cooling in temperatures, and more overcast, blustery conditions, lower pressure, it's really got me itching to try for barbel again. As much as I've enjoyed the amazing roach sport that you may have seen in the previous 2 videos on the channel, I'm haunted by memories of some of the barbel I've enjoyed catching from the Wye and from the River Trent earlier this year. Some fantastic fish, and there's nothing more exciting in my book than trying to catch one from a small river like the Wey. It's not as easy as it can be on big rivers like the Trent or the Wye, where it's sometimes possible to bag multiple barbel. If I can winkle out 1 or 2 on an evening session on this section of river, I'm a very happy man. And you may recognise it from 2 or 3 videos I've filmed on here since launching the magic of fishing 2 years ago. And I've been really lucky, or the river's been kind to me on all those occasions. I've managed to land a barbel for the camera, which is a lot easier said than done. I've come out this evening after work because we've had yet more heavy rain, as I say, and although the river's not looking quite as coloured as I'd expected or would have liked to have seen, I don't think the full flow of that rain has come this far downstream just yet, because certainly I've seen some big changes where I'm now living near Guildford. The river's up a good foot or so there. It's just starting to kick in further down here near Woking, but there is some good flow on the river. It's definitely up. You can see where some of the summer plant life has become submerged, and although I was disappointed and sad to see lots of big rafts of floating pennywater, really invasive plant species that didn't used to be in evidence on this stretch, it's clearly made its home here this summer, and I do feel that's going to hold a lot of the big fish. The barbel and the chub are going to be tucked up safely under there. The combination of these higher water conditions after a really dry summer and the ability I've got to fish into the dark are going to give me the best chance. I really have walked quite some distance from the car. It's not a convenient stretch this in terms of behind peg parking or easy access, but it's got that jungle-like quality that, you know, I sometimes just love to fish, particularly after some roach fishing, some quite straightforward roach fishing on the bollow or the waggler. It's nice to come somewhere a bit more wild feeling. You know, I'm always saying variety is the spice of fishing, and you can see down there an overhanging willow with a big raft of debris that's built up as the water has risen. Now to begin, a nice ragged chunk of luncheon meat, which has been flavoured with my favourite Chinese 5-spice mix and a few garlic granules. Cut them into slices and just tear off a piece. That's impaled on a size 6 Drennan barbel hook to a 15-pound braided hook length, and I'm keeping that hook length quite a bit shorter than I would if I was fishing on a big river, because you're quite regularly trying to swing your rig into tight spaces just like this, and I just want to keep everything simple. If you're yet to catch your first barbel, or it's been a while and you fancy giving it a go, I'm telling you now that what I've learned in the last 6 or 7 years of my addiction is that location and timing, or conditions, are the most important things. I've been desperately hoping to show that there are barbel and even chub in the local stretch of river to me, where I've moved near Guildford, between Guildford and Godalming, and I was actually out earlier this week after the first lot of heavy rain. I'm able to keep a close eye on that piece of river, you know, short lunchtime walks or have a look in the evening, and I've watched over the last 3 days as that river level has come up, perhaps by a few inches a day, until it was up a good foot on the summer levels. I could see reeds that, you know, had had their feet exposed over the summer. You may remember from one of my videos back in, I think it was July, where the river really did look painfully low, and just yesterday those reeds were back covered up with water, and it's lovely to see that river rising again. So I knew the conditions were getting right for barbel, and as much as I love my roach fishing, and I've had some fantastic sessions recently, I really did need to feel that thrill of a barbel from a small river again. So I've been out this week and unfortunately didn't get anything despite fishing into the dark, and having chatted to a few friends of mine, you know, they were telling me that there aren't many barbel in that stretch. That doesn't mean to say that I wouldn't love to catch one day or one night, and I will keep trying, I'm sure, over the winter. But it was a reminder that sometimes you need to come somewhere where you've had some success before, or you know others have had success. So if you're looking to catch your first barbel, ask your local tackle shop, ask your club mates, find out where they live, and that's a great start. Then if you can come after some rain, after some prolonged rain, when the river's got some colour in it and some proper pace, that's when the big fish will come out and have a mooch about, and they'll lose their natural caution. There's all kinds of food items getting washed in as the water rises, slugs, snails, worms. That's what gets the barbel on the feed, is that fresh water coming into the river. Some swear by a river that's been in flood and tailing off, but I've often found, whether it's on big rivers like the Trent or small local rivers like the Wey, that pretty much soon after that fresh water's gone in, after that heavy rain, that's when the barbel will go on the feed. And if you leave it too long, they can fill themselves up and go back into hiding. So yeah, make sure you're on a stretch of river where you know there's a few barbel, whether that's other people telling you or you've had some success down the years. Try and time your arrival for after some rain or during some rain, and if you can fish into the dark, that's really going to improve your chances too. And if you get those fundamentals right, then the tackle, tactics and the bait required to catch a barbel really can be kept simple. I've got a 10-foot nice short sturdy specimen quiver tip rod, £1.5 test curve. It's going to be a hit and hold job if I do latch into anything big in these conditions with so many snags around. And it's got a nice little Drennan beta light clipped on the end so that I can fish into the dark. It just soaks up the daylight rays and glows a nice green, firefly green. As soon as it gets dark, you'll know if you get a bite. I've got a 4000 size reel loaded with a really abrasion resistant tough 10-pound reel line, and as I say, a braided hook length down to a strong size 6 hook. 1 ounce lead is proving enough to hold in this flow. I might go up to 2 ounce if it was winter and really pushing through, really flooded. But as I say, it's not quite as high as I'd hoped. It's a strong, robust gear, but simple gear. And luncheon meat, certainly when there's a bit of colour in the waters, proven itself time and time again for me. Well, I said we'd had 4 seasons in one day, and you can just about make out a rainbow above the treetops. Hopefully that'll bring us a bit of luck. And feed wise, again, it's not like fishing a big river where you're trying to pull fish into your swim and perhaps hold a big shoal. You may have seen some of my videos on the Trent where I've talked about really regular casting, keeping lots of bait going in through a feeder, whether it's maggots, casters, hemp or pellet. Small river fishing, you're really trying to find the fish, hopefully in a feeding mood, and it'll just be 1 or 2 cubes of meat, just like I've got on the hook, in each swim, trying to get their attention, but nothing more. In lower, really clear water conditions, I'll probably go for smaller baits, pellet or naturals like hemp and caster. But when the water's on the rise like this, they're looking for food, hunting for food and using scent as much as sight. So it's not quite as coloured as I would have liked, but that could change even over the course of the 2 or 3 hours I've got this evening into the dark. And if not, then the falling light levels will give us the best chance. But no need to put lots of feed in when you're targeting small river barbel. Probably give each swim a good half hour, 40 minutes, and then move back downstream towards the car. It's a lovely evening. Sun's getting lower but glinting through the willow leaves. It's still largely green, and of course most trees are largely green in early September, but I've definitely seen signs of autumn just starting to creep in around the local stretch of the River Wey near where I live. It's a real treat to be able to watch how things change from day to day and week to week. And I think this is part of the addiction for me of barbel fishing, is real tranquility, whether it's a big powerful river that can feel just as wild and exciting, or a small, windy, overgrown, intimate river like this stretch of the Wey. It's just you and the river, and then if a barbel does come along to break the peace, all hell breaks loose, and it is the biggest adrenaline rush, I think, in fishing. There's lots of discussions over the years over which is the hardest fighting fish. You know, is it a salmon, carp, barbel? But certainly pound for pound, and when they've got the flow on their side or snags to aim for, a barbel takes some beating in my book. You really do need to be on the rod or rods at all times. Certainly on a snaggy venue like this, can't really give them an inch, and yeah, you do need your gear up to scratch, even if it's nice and simple. And it remains to be seen whether this will be one of those sessions where it's a long wait until that burst of exhilaration, or perhaps there'll be no luck at all. But that's the joy of fishing somewhere where you've had success before. You can imagine it, you can take your mind back to when you last hooked into a beautiful bronze torpedo. And I've talked about this a lot on the Magic of Fishing. It's about keeping the faith. If you've not caught one before, it can feel like it's never going to happen or not going to happen. It's not like, you know, fishing for bites, fishing for anything that swims. You have to be patient sometimes. But when the conditions are right, if the fish are there and they're in the feeding mood, if you put a bait in front of them, equally you can get a bite quite quickly. And that's why I like to try a few different spots. If it's just not happening after half an hour, 40 minutes, you can move on, see whether you can find a feeding fish further down. Right, as much as I love the look of this swim with that big raft of weed under the willow, and I have caught fish from here before, time is short, the sun's getting lower, and there's quite a bit of river downstream from here that I want to try at least 2 or 3 more swims. So got to be strict with myself. It's been a good half hour, 40 minutes. I think I'd have had a fish by now if they were there and in the feeding mood. So let's move on downstream, find another likely looking spot. A few minutes walk down from the top end, and I fancied this spot because not only have I had 1 or 2 fish out of here over the years, particularly in winter, but there's a good steady strong flow that comes down from a run up there, hits this big bend, or relatively big for this part of the river, and then kicks off past the big patch of vegetation and heads straight off down the river again. So there's some proper flow out there. I can see the tips just bouncing continually. There's flow hitting it, and probably debris, bits of leaves and weed that's just starting to die off is coming down the river and hitting the line. I just fancied one go where it wasn't really about stealth, it was about fishing a big, vast, powerful part of the river. I've cast quite a way downstream, and we'll see whether the fish might be out in the flow. If not, we'll move down to a more secluded swim and try there. tip really is bouncing in the current. It's partly the big meat bait, of course, catching the flow as it's coming down. But again, unless a big old eel comes along, and I have had 1 or 2 eels from this stretch, quite a few of them in fact, up to a few pounds in weight, particularly at night on the meat. If it's a chub or a barbel, you'll know about it. That tip really will bang round in this kind of current. Nothing in that second spot, so I'm moving further down. I reckon there's 1 or 2 swims left to try, and obviously the last one will be the one that I fish into the dark. So fingers crossed. Evening. Seen a couple of anglers on the far bank. That's a sign the conditions are good. Well, it's just becoming a little bit eventful this evening. Only a short session, but I've just met 2 fellow club anglers, and that's fairly rare on this stretch of river. It shows the conditions are right. One of them was here yesterday evening, and he'd had a chub but no sign of the barbel, and he actually said the river was much more coloured yesterday evening in a way that he didn't particularly like. He said it was really chocolate coloured, so that's made me feel a bit better about the clarity. You know, perhaps we've had that big rush of muddy water and now it's calming down a bit, and unfortunately they were fishing the 2 swims that I've got in mind, so sometimes you have to change your plans, and I'm not holding that against them one little bit. I always love meeting fellow anglers on the bank and just catching up on how their season's gone. Not anyone I know, but you know, we all share this passion, and in this case some knowledge and experience of the River Wey. So I was finding out what they'd been up to, what they'd been catching, good days and bad days. But I've had to come a bit further downstream to a spot that I've never really fished. It's just above a golf course actually, and there's a golf club, a clubhouse, quite some way over the far side, but it sounds like there's a pretty raucous party going on there tonight, which is unusual midweek. But yeah, quite loud music. I don't know whether the mic will pick it up or not. It's not the normal kind of backdrop to a quick evening session on here, but nice wide stretch of water here. I've certainly walked over the bridge a bit further downstream on summer days and seen good barbel and chub in this area, so in a way the fact that I've been forced to pick 1 swim and probably fish it into the dark, it suddenly feels quite fateful, and I'm not complaining at all. So let's see what we can do here. You can see the sun's getting lower and redder somewhere over where the party is, and the main flow is on that far side. My only slight concern with this swim is a big raft of the dreaded floating pennywort further down. I suspect that's where fish might be holed up during daylight hours, so I'm going to fish the bait just upstream of that, over on the far side, and hopefully as light falls we might tempt the fish out from under there and up to the bait with that beautiful Chinese 5-spice scent. Let's just get 1 or 2 chunks going downstream, get the fish onto the fact that there's a bit of food available, perhaps not natural food but very appealing food. Again, not feeding heavily, just enough to get their senses going. And I've got to say, a longer rod would be ideal. Fishing at this sort of distance in quite pacey water, get a bit of that line up out of the water, but I think with a 2 ounce lead on now, that'll be enough to hold. And it's going to be a fairly tricky cast because I'm under a big alder here. I need to get right over. Let's see whether I can do it backhanded. That's backhanded, not cack-handed. Be confident. That's lovely. That is lovely. Happy with that. So, a brand new swim. Never fished this before. And we will see whether I'm destined to have a very quiet rest of the evening, or whether this might feel like fate, the fact that the 2 swims I had in mind were taken. One or 2 small fish topping, I always like to see that. Just shows the river's active, the river's alive, there's fish moving. Lots of small stuff topping down in this slack down to the right. A few jumping out, probably being chased by a perch. It's a shame I've not got any worms on me actually to give them a go if it is slow on the meat, but I can see that sun just above the horizon through the trees, and I think the next hour or 2 are going to be prime time on the meat. Well, the music and the PA system have stopped just as suddenly as they seemingly started, so peace has descended on the river again. I love a party myself, but not while I'm fishing. The light is starting to go, it's getting gloomy under this big bow. It does feel right, even though I've never been in this swim before. We've got a fish. It's almost dark. Out the blue, or out the black should I say, darkness had fallen and that tip whipped round. And I've got the net down here. Considering this is a fairly beefy rod, £1.5 test curve, there's a proper bend in it. And now I'm starting to feel hopeful this could be the intended target. Whoa, yes, that's got to be a barbel. Oh, I'm in a halo of midges thanks to the torchlight, but I have not felt this happy for a while. Now let's not lose him. Whoa. What a scrap from these fish. What a bend in this rod. And I'm pretty sure I saw a glimpse of a bronze flank there in the torchlight. Oh, there he is. And he's in. Fantastic. We've done it. Now let's have a look. Right, he has had a well-earned rest in the net. It's a lovely fish. I'm not going to weigh him, but let's have a quick look before we slip him back. Let's put him on the mat. Oh, I am covered in gnats. Absolutely clouds of them, but this is well worth it. What a magnificent barbel in the dark. I'd say he's a good £4 or £5. What a scrap as well, and he's made my night, made my evening. It's only about 8:30, so I've perhaps got another hour or so yet, but let's slip him back. That was the addictive drama that I described right up front, and I'm so chuffed that I could share that with you. Not only the fact we've caught a lovely barbel, but you know, talking about how I go about catching them from a small river like this, and it's always nice to get some proof in the pudding just to show that it really does work. And as the torch gets mobbed by midges and gnats again, it's time for me to make another cast and see whether we can get another. And just look at these look at these insects. Time to go back to dark. Oh, the party's started again, and I've just had another bite. And the fish, yes. Now, this doesn't feel big, and I think it could be an eel. Let's get some light on the situation. Now, what have we got this time? Yes, it's an eel. It was a funny, persistent bite. Not at all like a barbel. And this should make a mess of even a simple rig. Let's see whether we can get him unhooked. And back a wriggly eel goes. Saw him swim off in the torchlight. Right, one last go for the barbel, then it's home time. Well folks, as you can see, I've retreated to the comfort of my garage to say my goodbyes and sum up this video and sum up a wonderful evening, short evening session after work. Those gnats were something else, and just trying to pack up my basic gear by torchlight was a bit of a nightmare, so I couldn't quite face doing some filming as well. I made the long walk back to the car with a big smile on my face, and now I'm in the garage, I can reflect on what was a really special post-work session. That's the magic of fishing. You can spend a day behind a desk looking out the window at the pouring rain and be inspired by that kind of bad weather to try a certain type of fishing. That's what the barbel love, that fresh water entering the river, getting those natural food items pulled into their world. And if you present a bait in those kind of conditions, you've got a really good chance of catching one. I'm sure there's lots of people watching who are regular barbel anglers and do very well. And if that's the case, I just hope that you've enjoyed joining me on another mini angling adventure. But if you've not caught a barbel ever, or just in a long while, I hope this might provide some ideas and inspiration, and you might get out there later this season and do it for yourself. Because it's one thing enjoying someone else catching on YouTube, but I'm telling you now, you cannot beat the thrill of sitting it out, keeping the faith, and then seeing that rod tip buckle over as a barbel makes off with the bait. As I said at the start of the video, get the basics right, speak to your local tackle shops, speak to local anglers. If you're in a club, speak to fellow members and just walk the banks of any small local rivers where you live and try and find out where there might be a few barbel in residence. And once you've done that, you really just need to wait for the right conditions. Even if you've not got some fresh rain entering the river and the sort of muggy overcast skies that are absolutely spot on, if you're willing to fish into the dark for an hour or two, get yourself a head torch. You've got every chance of bagging one, even when the conditions are tricky on small rivers. So I really hope you've learned a few things if you are new to barbel fishing. It's really quite addictive, and I've finally scratched that itch this evening. That should last me for a little while at least. So stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon on the bank.